how strong a case does Bersatu have against the Speaker?
Of course. Over such a tragic death.
The 6 of them ceased to become members because they did not sign the letters.
Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Headlines, the go-to space for your latest information in this week's round of Information Digest. My name is Amalina Kamal.
And I'm Hazwin Hassan. The Dewan Rakyat reconvened last week with much of the focus on the status of the 6 Bersatu MPs who pledged support for Prime Minister Tan Sri Anwar Ibrahim. They will now all get to keep their seats in Parliament following a notice issued by Dewan Rakyat Speaker Tan Sri Johari Abdul and a letter that was sent to Bersatu President Tan Sri Yassin. This reverses the initial vacate order by Bersatu after it declared that the 6 had ceased to be party members.
Now, this of course has led to further political tension. Perikatan Nasional Chairman Tan Sri Yassin expressed strong disapproval, stating that only the courts had the power to interpret the federal constitution and that the Speaker's decision undermined the anti-hopping provisions. Now, meanwhile, the 6 former members of Parti Bersatu Malaysia, whose memberships were revoked, are set to meet to discuss on their next course of action. Now, the 6 MPs in question are the Bukit Gantang MP, the Jeli MP, Kuala Kangsar MP, Tanjung Karang MP, Labuan MP and Gua Musang MP. Now, of course, to discuss Parliament updates as well as what has transpired the past and what we are expected in this particular sitting, we have Hana Nasarun joining us on set. Welcome, Hana.
Thank you for having me.
Hana, of course, you've listened to our introduction, but to summarize this, maybe you can share with our audience a little background context on why this is such a debate in Parliament.
Okay, so it began late last year when several Bersatu members of Parliament declared their support for Anwar. I think it started first with Kuala Kangsar MP, Datuk Iskandar Zulkarnain Abdul Khalid. Yeah. So as you mentioned, in total 6 of them have expressed their support, causing this whole drama between the 6 MPs, Bersatu and the Dewan Rakyat Speaker. So Bersatu, while trying to figure out what action to take on the 6 rebels, they amended their constitution aimed at preventing its members from becoming frogs and switching sides. So their party constitution took effect on April 1st, way after the 6 had already declared the support. So technically, through these amendments, these 6 MPs must immediately vacate their seats if they continue supporting the unity government. Bersatu then sent a letter to all the 6, not just all the 6, but all their representatives actually, with a 2-week deadline to respond to and sign. Basically sign or cease to be a member. Yeah. So as expected, the 6 did not sign the letter, and it took Tan Sri Johari quite a while to decide on the status of the 6 of them in Parliament. His decision was made known via a letter to the party on Tuesday evening, stating that the 6 of them could keep their seats.
If I may quote Tan Sri Yassin in terms of his response to that letter, is that the decision made has disappointed not just him but also the party deeply, and he actually has accused the Speaker for making a decision that is shallow as well as twisting the interpretation of the federal constitution.
I think in this case it's quite obvious, number one, as you just slightly mentioned just now, that Tan Sri Yassin has not taken to this well at all. Obviously he's upset, the whole entire party is upset because they've gone against what the party's wishes. Which is to be expected, really. And they followed up with mulling over that they might take legal action against the Dewan Rakyat Speaker. And Hana, I think you're the best person to elaborate more on this because you wrote this story that came out just a few hours ago today. Bersatu may take legal action against the Speaker. Now, in this case, how strong a case does Bersatu have against the Speaker?
Okay, so I am as confused as all of you are. What Bersatu is saying is that the 6 of them ceased to become members because they did not sign the letters from the party. But to the 6 of them, they were sacked by the party. According to the constitution, if you cease to be members, you have to vacate. Also, according to the constitution, if you are sacked, you don't have to vacate. So that's a whole, I mean, Bersatu can use the argument that we sent them this letter stating that if you don't sign, that means you are no longer part of the party.
Right.
They might use that argument in court, and depending on the judge, whether they want to allow Bersatu's argument or just to follow what the speaker has already ruled. Yeah.
So in this case, which takes precedence? Because you have the party, Bersatu here, with their own party constitution, and you have something that by virtue of it being the law of the land, you have the federal constitution, which by right should overrule everything else. But in this case, which takes precedence? Because, you know, like you just mentioned, the federal constitution guarantees that the MP can keep their seats. But in this case, that's not how Bersatu sees it as. So which one prevails? Which will prevail likely?
So the thing is, Bersatu only amended their constitution on April 1st. It was only accepted on April 1st.
And after the situation,
after this whole thing blew
debacle.
up. So you cannot retrospectively apply the amendments when it's already been done. So the argument that analysts have said that, you know, they will bring this up in court, but ultimately it's for the courts to interpret and decide.
Right.
Yeah.
And just to add, because in this whole, you know, confusion and I suppose drama that is, you know, taking place, Muhyiddin Yassin has also highlighted how it does, how the speaker's decision might impact the anti-hopping law. Experts have actually said that there is a weakness in the law. I mean, exposed through this. In a way, the Dewan Rakyat speaker's decision to let the Bersatu MPs to keep their seats will set a precedence for future, I suppose, situations such as this. If this is not addressed immediately, then, you know, personality politics will just overshadow everything else.
Yeah, but that's the thing. With the Nenggiri by-election, the Gua Musang MP, the Kelantan courts decided that, you know, you are already no longer a Negeri by assemblyman, so you have to vacate the seat. So in a way, that's already a precedent for the courts, the high courts here. So like, what do we do? How do we go about this? I mean, there have been criticisms that there needs to be further amendments to the federal constitution in this matter. Yeah.
And with that, let's hear what Datuk Shad Faruqi has to say.
Well, the former Prime Minister is correct that ultimately the issue is for the courts. Normally, the decisions of Mr. Speaker are not questionable in a court of law, but we have some decided cases. You remember sometime in 2019 in the Perak Assembly crisis, Jamaluddin Muhammad Razi case 2009, where the decision of the Speaker was overruled by the court. So the courts are the ultimate arbiter of the Constitution. However, the courts are not eager to interfere with Mr. Speaker over what we call parliamentary privileges. You see, the issue here is quite complex, and that is this, that Article 49, capital A, the amendment, is very explicit that sacking or expulsion from a party is not a ground for the seat to fall vacant. That whatever ground is supplied by the party for cessation of an MP's membership from the party, this ground or grounds must not be a disguise for sacking, must not be a play of words, must not be similar to expulsion. So I think Section 18, Clause 6, Societies Act cannot prevent the courts from examining Likewise, Mr. Speaker, while he has powers that will be very difficult to challenge, still, if the court finds that Mr. Speaker has violated Article 49A, Mr. Speaker's decision will be subject to judicial review. So the point, if I may summarize, is this: a rational distinction must exist between seizing and sacking. Of course, the Constitution is not clear whether deliberately or unintentionally they did not provide a clear distinction between ceasing to be a member and dismissal from membership. So the constitutional provision in 49A is clearly open-ended. And because it is open-ended, so the matter is one of interpretation. Interpretation by whom? In the first instance, by Mr. Speaker. So all this talk that Mr. Speaker has no right, well, this is not correct. The law has to be interpreted in the first instance by Mr. Speaker, not by the party leader. And if after Mr. Speaker has interpreted it, there is dissatisfaction, then by the courts in the final instance. Actually, I think any decision of anybody should be open to examination and scrutiny by the courts in the interest of supremacy of the Constitution. So I'll sum up for you like this: neither the party constitution, nor the Societies Act, nor Mr. Registrar of the societies, nor Mr. Speaker can ignore Article 49A, which clearly lays down, so in wake that seizing is a ground but not expulsion. So no one is above the law. Unless the party satisfies that this amounts to seizing and not sacking, the Speaker and the courts may give the benefit of doubt to the concerned.
Hannah, are we expecting any upcoming parliamentary motions that might address the decision about still retaining the 6 Bersatu MPs?
I'm not sure if that's going to be allowed because before Tan Sri Johari's ruling has been made known, a few MPs did raise this in Dewan Rakyat, but the Deputy Speaker presiding over the session will always say, refer to Tan Sri Johari, refer to Tan Sri Johari. So I doubt that any discussions will be allowed in Parliament.
Well, that's that. Moving away now from personality politics, Hannah, maybe you can quickly list out all the key highlights of Parliament so far.
Okay, there have been a lot in the past 3 weeks, I think. One of them being the Dewan Rakyat accepted the Penal Code Amendment Bill 2024, aimed at tackling the rising incidences of online financial fraud in the country. These amendments included provisions addressing offences involving payment instruments or accounts at financial institutions. And the Parliament also postponed the third reading of the Drug Dependence Treatment and Rehabilitation Amendment 2024 for further fine-tuning. Home Minister Datuk Sri Saifuddin Nasution Ismail, who concluded the second reading of the bill in Dewan Rakyat on July 9, had requested for the bill to be referred to 2 parliamentary special select committees, which are Health and Security. And as the Dewan Rakyat is always lively with debates and arguments, Deputy Speaker Datuk Ramli Muhammad Noor also reminded the MPs not to act like children and show maturity in the way they debate. He said, don't make a fool of ourselves. Yeah.
I mean, that's really nothing new. We've always had MPs being reprimanded for not really behaving.
For him to, remind, I think he said, jangan perbodohkan diri kita.
Right.
I think that's, I think he's reached his limit.
I think it reminds me of if you go back some time ago, when the King of Malaysia, Sultan Ibrahim, right? He said the same thing when he first addressed the Parliament. Yeah. He said, "You've got to start acting like MPs and setting a better example." So,
but yeah, that's the thing. I think we all enjoy the drama. It's always entertaining.
I want to go back to the reactions on the drug dependence bill. NGOs have claimed that what's going to be tabled should be revisited, because they are saying that the drug laws may have unintended negative consequences on matters that it will still be punitive. Upon reviewing the bill for the amendments, experts said that the approach was punitive and could lead to negative effects. So they actually said, despite claims of decriminalizing drug abuse, the proposed amendments maintain penalties for drug users and their families. Now, they are particularly worried about consolidating powers under a single agency, which is NADA, and reducing collaboration with the Health Ministry. But the ex-DG, Datuk Sri Johari Abdul, has said that the bill, which was tabled in Dewan Rakyat, does not fully grant authority to NADA, actually. It will still go through with the consultation of registered medical professionals.
I mean, just to add to what you said about the bill specifically, what this amendment seeks to get really is to make our drug-related laws more rehabilitative, more focusing on the rehab aspect of things rather than being more punitive. And I think this extends to all criminal offences related to drug use, drug trafficking even, because we still have the mandatory death penalty, and that obviously needs to always be discussed. And there is never a time where it's not right to discuss that, because I think we've had it on the show before. We did actually discuss the mandatory death bill. Should we do away with such capital punishment? And in this case, I think it's the right time and right avenue, because when we're talking about drugs, and in particular people who are dependent on drugs and developed an addiction, we should see it in the same way we see people who are addicted to food, for instance, eat food that's not good for them, that makes them ill. People who are addicted to alcohol, people who are addicted to smoking, it should be seen as a disease. So in the same token, the next step really is to focus on rehabilitation rather than punishing them.
Right. But what's certain is that because of the reports and the critics from the experts, or at least NGOs looking into this, at least the ex-DG is saying that claims of the amendments did not go through proper engagement with stakeholders. Those are actually untrue, and it's highly inappropriate, because the stakeholders were engaged even from the get-go, right? So and the engagement is still very much open.
I mean, part of the whole delay is so that it will go through another round of discussion.
Yes, that's right.
By the select committee. We've got 2 select committees involved, right? So.
Yeah.
They're still trying to get the buy-in from the health and what was the other one?
It's the health and security.
Security.
Yeah.
Input. So,
Yeah.
do you think that that's going to help strengthen whatever it is they need to, improve? Do you think that's going to go a long way, or is this just buying time, really?
Well, it's like the GEG bill, the General Endgame bill,
Right.
which was also referred to the Parliamentary Select Committee. I think this will allow the bill to be discussed further and to see how they can further improve, especially with the comments and inputs from more NGOs regarding the matter.
Well, Parliament also touched on Malaysia's anti-corruption efforts. Now, there's a question from Datuk Awang Hashim on the government's step moving forward to prevent corruption and improve governance in general. So, and of course, at the center of it all is the NACS, which is actually the National Anti-Corruption Strategy 2024 to 2028. It is a positive step that many have lauded, but however, continuous efforts to implement institutional reforms are crucial. Hannah, maybe you can help refresh our minds on this whole NACS policy moving forward in combating corruption.
Okay, so earlier this week, Prime Minister Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim did say that he would bring up the NACS in Parliament to be discussed or debated. But I think right now they're just giving way for government orders, government business to be discussed, other bills maybe, and before the NACS is being brought up. So essentially, the NACS is a continuation from the National Anti-Corruption Plan 2019-2023, but the NACS is a strengthened version of that. It includes more specific policies and implementation strategies, and with 5 key strategies, which include education, public accountability, voice, enforcement, and incentives. So the NACS was launched in May this year, and it emphasizes the effectiveness of anti-graft efforts to improve governance and integrity, especially within the public service.
Right. The bigger approach to this is because we want to raise our CPI index, and you've had that interview with Tan Sri earlier on, right? And the fight against graft is a continuous one.
Yeah.
And certainly what we look forward to, especially when it comes to NACS, is ensuring that the MACC itself operates independently. Now, we want to move into Datuk Sri Azalina Othman introduced the Evidence of Child Witness Amendment Bill 2024 for its first reading. Now, this bill aims to improve provisions for child witness testimony by amending the Evidence of Child Witness Act 2007.
Azalina presented the bill on Tuesday to amend, like you said, the Evidence of Child Witness Act 2007, and it's basically to include substantive and procedural guidelines regarding having a child witness as evidence. So these amendments essentially would be helpful for the child herself or himself when they have to appear in court as part of court proceedings or any case. As children, they would normally feel maybe intimidated or scared or pressured when they have to appear before a court. So in essence, this amendment to this bill would make it easier for children to undergo the legal process, especially when they need to give evidence, so that they understand what is being done to them and what the investigation is all about.
Now, this whole bill actually sounds like a significant shift. I mean, the impact of it is, of course, to enhance the credibility and reliability of child witness testimonies here. We also have a reaction from SUHAKAM.
Generally, as it stands now, without the amendment, every child is considered to be incompetent, in that sense. So has to be. So because unfortunately court case precedent says that a child's testimony has to be taken very cautiously. That's the presumption. So now with the amendment of the law, the presumption changes. The presumption would be that the witness is giving evidence truthfully and is competent enough to provide evidence, right?
Right.
Unless there's a reason not to, or for whatever reason, then you can go on the credibility or the weight that you want to attach to evidence of the child. What if it's a situation where a child has been mentally abused throughout for a period without any physical abuse? That's one. So automatically, it will be assumed that there's no insufficient evidence, right? So whereas in another situation, if it involves an adult, the court can look at the veracity of each evidence and decide in whichever favor to accept or not to accept. So for a child, currently what would happen is it would not be accepted. To be fair, I've not seen the whole bill.
I see.
I think what would be required is how the evidence is taken.
Okay.
And whether whether the evidence is given in camera, that means the court is cleared of everyone else except for the lawyers. Things like that. And said there should be rules on how to on questioning of credibility. The judge must be aware of. Firstly, once this law is allowed, you must allow the challenge of the credibility of the child as well. That's the unfortunate disadvantage of having the law, unfortunately. But how the credibility challenge is supposed to be done has to be managed and controlled. It's also unlikely that for a child to make up evidence that this happened, that happened, or this whatever happened. So there must be sufficient protection as like in any other witness.
Do you think that this bill is timely, especially during today's context where everything is accessible and everything?
This is the right move and are happy that this is taking place, that we are making the amendments to this bill, because they should have a say. Children should have a say. And I think it extends also to, other sorts of crime or dubious sort of situations where children have this. They should be given equal weight, for their reasoning and their account of a story, because as you briefly said, that in this day and age where everything gets recorded, everything gets published, everything goes online, we have to consider every little pocket of society, even if it includes the minors, and be given the same weight.
This particular amendment requires changes to related acts like the Evidence Act 1950 and the Sexual Offences Act, Sexual Offences Against Children Act 2017. Now, apart from this particular introduction, other amendments related to this bill include the Evidence Amendment Bill 2024, the Oaths and Information Bill 2024, the Sexual Offences Against Children Bill 2024, and the Security Offences Special Measures Amendment Bill 2024. Now, these amendments are meant to align with the changes in the main bill. That's a lot to be discussed. Well, drama in Parliament is also our Transport Minister having to experience shortness of breath. Hannah, were you there in Parliament?
I was not there. I was actually in the office, but I saw that story come up and I immediately texted Christina, our reporter in Parliament, what happened. So is it on, I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday morning. Did it happen yesterday?
It's okay, but it's this week.
It was yesterday, right?
Yeah, July 10th.
Yesterday, it was raining really heavily in the morning, and traffic was really bad, even from where I was coming from.
Right.
So I think he experienced the same bad traffic, and he was late for Parliament, and the session had already begun. What I was informed that he was probably rushing to get into Parliament, and therefore experienced shortness of breath as he was trying to answer the questions.
He doesn't have any health history of any health issues, right?
Not that I know of.
Not that the public knows of, right?
Just maybe lacking stamina.
Because in the video, you can see, I mean, obviously we have the recording from Parliament. You can see he had his hand over his chest and he was patting his chest. He's seen patting his chest several times before, sort of pointing or signaling to his deputy to take over the session, right? The question time. I mean, I wouldn't want to wish it on anyone, let alone a minister who's trying to present, a bill in Parliament. Yeah.
I mean, it was certainly like nerve-wracking because it was all caught on camera. But anyway,
all live.
Moving on, this didn't actually happen in Parliament, but it is concerning Parliament. The Segamut MP is actually calling for greater accountability, especially against cyberbullying. This followed the alleged suicide of a particular TikToker after being constantly bullied online.
So the influencer is a famous TikToker who goes by Esha, or her real name Rajeswari Apahu, a 30-year-old who has made quite herself known through her videos on TikTok. She usually posts about beauty tips, like your average normal TikToker really. And she was the target of mean comments. Basically, people were after her. People left really vile and derogatory comments, mostly making threats, almost death threats and other threats to injure her. In fact, there were reports saying that some of these comments included threats to rape and kill her, as well to harm her physically. And there were also threats made to her family. And so it extends to quite a large part of her life. It's not just her presence on TikTok, but also it extends to her other members of the members of her family. And this has the incident of her death. By the way, she was found dead in her home in Kuala Lumpur, if I'm not mistaken, on July the 5th. And ever since, her her death was made known, this incident has been picked up by the Segambut MP.
Yeah, R.
Right.
Eunice Warren. So actually, R. Eunice Warren actually said that cyberbullying must be addressed and immediately, be taken into consideration of how, we do not want future occurrences such as this to happen, because Rajaswari was also known on TikTok to regularly share inspiring quotes and beauty content. You wouldn't expect somebody who is, emitting out like positive vibes to people also having to experience that, and unfortunately having to, come to this sort of fate. And the latest update to that is the second suspect in the influencers cyberbullying case had actually surrendered himself. So what we know of the suspect, who is in his 40s, is identified as Dulal Brothers. He actually turned himself in at a police station yesterday evening, July 10th, in Sentul. Now, according to our papers, the Sentul District Police Chief Assistant Commissioner Ahmad Sukarno Muhammad Zahari, who confirmed the arrest, said that he has been detained and will be produced in court in the morning for a remand application.
I think the police have identified 9, right, so far?
9, but it's still, suspects, right? So yeah,
Suspects who I think would have been based on the fact that these are the people who left these mean and vile comments and made threats to her life.
yeah. But the case has certainly sparked nationwide outrage and drawn the attention of our Prime Minister, even in Dewan Rakyat. And it is a tragic death that is part of a troubling pattern of our society, because it's linked to 2 other suicides that is linked to online harassment.
I mean, it all comes down to the fact that bullying as a whole hasn't really been addressed. Even before the time of TikTok and what have you, social media platforms that we have today, we've never really gotten to address bullying. At school, for example, children coming home from school, suddenly changing, their behavior overnight, becoming someone who's very outgoing, then suddenly becomes very reserved, doesn't even want to go to school anymore. We've had cases of that happening. So it's a symptom of a larger problem that was left unfixed for such a long time. And only now it's become digitized, in the sense that now you have it on these digital platforms. In fact, now with these digital platforms and social media, it makes it easier for people to become the target of bullying, because these bullies, right, they can just come on and have this sort of semi-anonymous presence, because anyone can come up with a handle and hide behind that, assume a name, and then start just putting out really mean comments and making threats.
You can be totally anonymous, actually.
Exactly.
Yeah, just hiding behind some random picture of a cat, even.
That's true.
And it's so often than not that the cyberbullies are those that you least suspect. I think the very sad part about this case is that the mom actually really demands justice. Of course, over such a tragic death. Because speaking to the New Straits Times as well, the mother she told the press that she's very fond of Esha and did not expect that Esha, having to be such a bold person, to be falling into such a tragic end.
People can be so mean, and especially the younger kids who take to these social media platforms. I think the one thing is that they just don't realize just how hurtful, these comments can be, and because there's there's this lack of accountability, because that you can hide behind that name.
Keyboard warriors of
exactly.
sorts.
So it's that lack of accountability, knowing that nothing's gonna happen. Okay, I'll leave a mean comment and 10,000 people will like my comment. In fact, it actually gives some sort of in some sick sense, it gives euphoria to people who thrive on it.
But I do hope there will be some sort of positive development in terms of having to ensure proper enforcement and proper legal infrastructure, especially in curbing cases against bullying, because we also will be seeing the expansion of the Harassment Act, and then the detail of the Stalking Act. Unfortunately, this is the end of the episode. Now, again, if you like our episode, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on that notification bell if you haven't already. You would not only get Beyond the Headlines update, other reports on NSA Online will also be delivered to you. Once again, I'd like to thank our guests that's on set, Hannah Naz. Harun, thank you so much, Hannah.
Thank you for having me once again.
Also, thank you, Hazri, for being my co-host.
Always a pleasure.
And to our audience, thank you for watching up until the end. Again, my name is Amalina Kamal, and I'll see you next week.